drop every taste on the tip of my tongue. Bend my nail, bite my thumb. Evidence won't clear my name. Baby, in your presence will be so forever. Until the moment when I rest my eyes shut. Now I'm ready. I'll do anything. I'm not asking this is mine through the perfect strange. 10,000 days on there. Days won't clear our names. Oh, baby, it's our last kiss. We'll last forever. That's the moment when I rest my eyes shut. Now I'm ready. Yeah, the only answer's what we've always wanted. Ooh, and we hold it till there's nothing else can let us down. The only answer's what we've always wanted. Oh, 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 oh.
Welcome, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with seven different Western New York locations and over 300 beers to choose from. What better place to go to drown your Sabres sorrows than Fatty Beer? Live entertainment at all 7 locations, along with trivia 7 days a week from 11:30 a.m. till 10:30 and later. And, of course, Buffalo logo apparel, Buffalo's best spot for all your Buffalo sports apparel needs when it comes to the Sabres, Bills, Bisons, or Bandits. They have everything from hats, shirts, and hoodies. Make sure you go check them out at Buffalo Co. on Twitter and Instagram, at Fatty Beer on Twitter and Instagram as well. You can check them out online. Without further ado, we're going to bring in the man, the myth, legend, Walt, Sabermetrics. Before we get started, I've never been this guy. Never been this guy to ever do something like this. Like, you see it in the stands. You see people, maybe, people that go overboard, overreact, whatever it is. And this year I was really excited because I have a co-host now. Not a shot against Cully, but he's always busy. I have a co-host that I'm excited about, consistent. He's always here. As passionate as I am, guy stays up, works around his schedule. We're living on the West Coast to be on all these, podcasts and post games with me. There's a lot to be excited for me from a personal standpoint for this season, but I've gotten to this point.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
It's time.
Oh no.
It's time to sell the team.
You're not even going to cut the eyes out. You can't even see.
No, because see what is it saying? Hear no evil, see no evil. I don't know. I don't want to see shit.
It's just darkness.
Sell the team, guys. Hold on.
We're getting into
I
Knicks.
I need eye holes.
Knicks fans, James Dolan territory. This is bad.
Yeah, no.
I can see you both, kind of.
We're getting there. There's
I
a
can see
famous
Good.
there's a famous TMZ Sports clip of a Knicks fan saying "sell the team" in a very like polite manner to James Dolan a couple years ago. And he goes, "Oh, you want me to sell the team? You really want me to sell the team?" And he like points to his security, and he gets the guy thrown out immediately. That's the type of situation we're in right now, apparently.
9-4. 9-4.
9 times.
30 seconds in. You lost 9-4. Hold on. I'm muffled. You lost 9-4.
9 times they scored.
9-4. Oh my God! And the only reason it was 4 goals is because they started playing on their heels because they knew they had it won.
Yeah, you got the start you wanted, the start that they haven't gotten for 75% of this season. 30 seconds into the game, your leading scorer, who, mind you, is a defenseman, gets the first goal in your home building. It's the exact start you wanted for a blowout. I think any of us would reasonably have thought that after that goal, a 9-4 result would have been in favor of the Sabres. Given they were starting their third goalie, they have the least amount of wins in the conference. They're actively tanking. They just traded a player that they put on waivers 2 weeks ago. It's a horrible team, largely, but they do have some good players, and it was just an absolute train wreck. Shout out Trainwreck Sports. Walt, your thoughts?
I mean, it's definitely an interesting point of the season. I thought like Sabres could maybe lose this one and things would really go south in terms of like fans' perception of this team, but I definitely did not expect them to drop a 9-4 game at home. I think it kind of like changes up really how the fans and maybe even how ownership views like the GM and coach's safety. Because I think at this point, the season's just slipping away with each loss and each game you don't win. At this point last year, they started out pretty slow, but they churned out like a 9-game win streak and then won like 11 of 15 games or something like that. And at this point, at the same point this season, things are going the complete opposite way. And it doesn't really look like they're getting better. So I don't really even know where to go with this team at this point or what to think about this season or their future seasons.
I think we're as Duane has to sell the team paper bag over his head. I don't think he's going to do that, so it's hard to even entertain that possibility. Mike Harrington, who we had on last night, put out an article today about how Terry still watches every game. He's as invested into the team as he is the Bills. His first love was hockey. It's the reason he bought the Sabres. Blah, 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 blah. I do not think he's going to sell the team because at the end of the day, it is still profitable, and I do think that he's got a personal connection to it. But we're at the point that we've seen it 3 times in the league this year thus far. Edmonton, St. Louis, and Ottawa have all fired head coaches, and they've all gotten a boost from it. So you're at that point with Don Granato. He was a good development coach, put a lot of guys in good positions like Tage Thompson and Dahlin to improve their games and become superstars. But is he just not cut out to be a legitimate NHL head coach for a team that probably should have been in a playoff position at this point? And then you go down the list of candidates that could come in right now. My first thought that comes to my mind is Seth Appert, the coach of the Americans, because he knows a lot of the players. He knows the system. He could come in and be a stopgap. But then you look at the guys available. Bruce Boudreau has done this before. Variety of different situations. Craig Berube, obviously, Stanley Cup winning head coach with the St. Louis Blues. Jordan Kyrou had some really tough words to say about him or didn't say any words about him after he left. So there might have been a situation there. There's Gerard Gallant, experienced head coach, recently had success with the Knights and the Rangers. And then there's Jay Woodcroft, who had some success with the Oilers, but obviously that didn't go well. So a number of different candidates. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that.
I think they should hire whoever's coaching the Bisons, really. I mean, we already hired a soccer coach. I mean, I know I'm just sitting here talking shit and just with a bag over my head, but I'm just like so disappointed with the direction of this team right now. And like I was just reading while you were talking some comments from Tage Thompson after the game, and I stopped at this. He said, "We're still a young team." No, you're not. You age, sure, but a lot of you guys have been in the league now for 3, 4, 5 years. Like, you're not a young team. You have experience. You all have close to 200 or more games underneath your belt in the NHL. Like, the way you're coming out of the gate is inexcusable. It's not an excuse you can't sit there and say, "Oh, we're a young team. We have lessons to learn, this, that, and the other." Like, no. A lot of you guys have been in the league now for 200 plus games. Darlene, Thompson, Alex Tuck, just to name a couple. Like, there's no excuses for that. I don't want to hear about youth and age. Like, you see guys like Zach Benson, who has no problem at all showing up every single game, whether it's hunger or not, or just wanting to stay in this lineup. He's arguably their best forward on a lot of nights, and that's not a good thing. You wish it was a good thing, but it's not a good thing. I'm sick and tired of hearing like, "Oh, we're young, we're youth, we're learning." No, a lot of you guys have been in this league for 200 or more games. You have a lot of NHL games underneath your belt. That's fucking bullshit. I'm done with that. The same verbiage and narrative and rhetoric we hear in these post-game press conferences. I'm done with it. I'm done with the bag too. I'm done. It's getting hot.
It was a good run. It was a really good run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's probably their next move for a coach too, is I think it's someone that could take these players and just kind of motivate them and be a motivator. That's why I'm not really sure if they'll go right into Appert as an interim coach. I could see them if they move on from Granato, just like pretty much already having a deal behind the scenes with another coach and just going straight into that. I think it's something that I could definitely see, like ownership, like Terry Pegula. I could definitely see him like watching these games right now and being like, "Oh, we need like a veteran voice in the room as a head coach," and something like that. So I don't know if like there'll be any firings this season unless things really continue to go south, but I feel like it's definitely trending that way, and it's something I didn't really imagine would already be like a discussion point at this point in the season, like heading into it, like just this past September. I mean, it hasn't even been Christmas yet. We're already talking about firing the coach and GM. So that kind of just shows how just poorly the season's been so far.
Like, they've beaten the 4 current division leaders in the NHL. One in their own barn, which was like one of the few good home games they've played this season. And then Vegas, the Rangers, and the Bruins on the road. There's no excuse for nights like this if you're capable of playing that way in the games that nobody expects you to win. Like Mike Harrington said it last night, it does feel like a mental thing with this team. They either get down too quickly, which has happened most of the season, or even tonight, they get up and then they take their foot off the gas and they're not able to protect a lead. It really does feel mental because obviously they do have the players. We saw it last season. They have the talent, they have the skill, they have the ability. It's just not shining through in the moments that they need it most against the worst team in the league. They get absolutely boat raced in their own building. It's honestly remarkable.
Very reminiscent of when we played them last year when Tage had 4 goals in the first period.
I think they had 9 that game, right?
He had 5 goals that game. Yeah.
I think the Sabres did have 9 in that game, though.
And that was did. I think you might be
right. That was like one of a few like really, really high scoring games they had last season, which I think like tipped the scales a little bit in terms of their offensive production, which is why like everybody thought like there was some offensive negative regression coming this season, which we've seen in the worst way possible. Their 4 goals tonight are above their average for the season. And obviously like 4 goals per game would be really good, but none of those goals even mattered, obviously. So yeah, it's really bad. I personally would be in favor of a change at this point. I think it's time. Like you're going on 2.5 years with Granato after the firing of Kruger. And obviously that was rock bottom, but we're getting to a point where the expectations are not meeting the results. And you've seen the difference it's made with other teams. I would say the Oilers are the best example of a team that has, or at least used to have, an offensive identity, and they started the season really poorly. And since that change, they've come into their own a little bit. So I think it's a good idea, whether it be any one of those 5 guys that I mentioned. I think Seth Appert would be a good idea just in terms of like getting this team back to being fun and scoring goals and hopefully winning games like 7-4. Because at this point, that seems like the only way they can win.
I just don't want to like run into a situation like we did this past season. And correct me if I'm wrong. I never really looked into it. Is his entire staff the same staff that Ralph Kruger had? Like they didn't went out. I don't think they went out and hired a different staff. I think they just kept the same Kruger staff, right? Matt Ellis was there with Kruger.
Yeah. That Marty Wolford guy, I don't know how long he's been there. We just learned his name recently. And then Dan Girardi, I think, came in a little bit after. I know Mike
He's
Bales
not even there. Let's be real. He shows up at practice and then goes home and sleeps lays on his couch during games.
Mike Bales was there with Kruger. I know that.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it doesn't seem like we've talked about Matt Ellis time and time again, but yeah, it doesn't seem like there were any super big tangible changes once Don got there.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Walt?
Yeah, just looking up now, it looks like in Kruger's last year they had Ellis, Girardi, Steve Smith listed as assistants, and I think Granato, the only carryover is Ellis. Granato hired Jason Christie and Marty Wilford, so I guess there was some change, but I mean, I kind of just think back to like during COVID where Terry and Kim Pegula had that press conference kind of about how they're going to like be a little bit cheaper with the Buffalo Sabres moving forward. And I thought the plan was kind of always to have like Granato and Adams just be like stopgap pieces while they just kind of try to become a normal hockey team again and try to get back to winning some games. I think they're probably a little bit surprised that like those are the guys that almost got them into the playoffs last season. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe decide to even move on from Adams as well. Like not fire him completely, but move him back into like his older role kind of as a president of the business side or maybe even hockey operations and kind of manage that department and bring in kind of like a GM. Just because I feel like Adams, he's just like that type of guy that's great at managing like a bunch of different people and like getting input from other people. But I think at the same time, it's almost beneficial to have a GM that has like their own identity, that kind of wants to put their stamp on different moves and kind of wants to be bold with it at sometimes. I just don't think the Sabres really have that type of personality right now. I think he's more of just a man manager. And I think it could be something the Sabres explore, maybe not in season, but maybe in the off season. Just because I think if they want to get serious about taking this next step, I think they have to get serious about the people they have in those positions of power.
I mean, they've refused to hire a president of hockey operations for God knows how long.
Yeah.
It's been suggested so many times. It's been talked about, and they tried to get away with Kevin Adams being a first-time GM, and he's made some good trades. Obviously, he's had some really good draft picks, but the positions they've been in for being so bad, I mean, they lucked into Zach Benson this year.
There's no
Owen Power was gifted to them. They had no other option but to do that in those points. And I think the Jack Eichel deal like was pretty good, but at the same time, like you got into a dispute with your star player who then went on to probably should have won a Conn Smythe again. And he won a Stanley Cup again. And you got out of it. Yeah, a couple good players, a couple good prospects, but at the same time, he was supposed to be the guy to lead this franchise to a Stanley Cup after the tank here, after everything that we went through. So I saw a suggestion earlier on Twitter about Jason Karmanos, the current assistant GM, potentially being promoted to GM. I know he's had a lot of work with front offices in the past. I think previously in Pittsburgh before this. Maybe that's a good idea for an interim situation this season. Kevin Adams and president of hockey operations. And then, yeah, I don't know. I think any one of those guys who are previous NHL head coaches, no nonsense guys that have had experience in these types of situations could come in and potentially give this team a prayer. Because right now they need to play at like 110-point pace the rest of the season. There's 49 games left. They need to win 31 or 32 of them to even have a shot to make the playoffs. So that's going to take a lot more than what they have now. I'm
going to rip off some, Brian Koziel is always there with the post-game comments from the players and coach from Okposo. Not a lot of good for sure. It seemed like every mistake was costing us. It's not a fun night, especially when you're at home. That's a tough one. Also from Okposo in regards to the crowd boos. That's 12 years for them for sure. Not all of that's on us. That's a lot of frustration, and it's understandable. As a group, we bear some of that. Some. Like, listen, tonight wasn't a situation where they were that much better. That was lack of effort, lack of desire, lack of energy, lack of a lot of things. It wasn't a lack of skill. It's not like you guys have much less skill than the Columbus Blue Jackets. That was lack of wanting to win, or as Shorzy would say, you got to fucking hate to lose more than you love to win. And there's none of that out there tonight. None of it. So saying that. Also from Okposo, I felt like when the mistakes are coming at you like that, you just go deeper and deeper. We played like a young team. Shut up. We tried to make things happen when they weren't there. Okposo, we got to find it. It's not an easy road that we've made for ourselves. It seems like collectively we're a bit of a sophomore slump.
Sophomore slump. What's well, I mean, I would say senior slump, given that the drought is 12 years, right? So 12 years of school. We're in a senior slump, Kyle.
Sophomore slump. What?
No, my favorite one, Tage on what happened in the second period. Quote, I don't know. End quote. I don't know. I really respect that answer. That's a good answer.
I don't know.
Who the fuck knows what happened? God.
It's crazy at this point. I mean,
no, seriously. How many times have we hit rock bottom?
I feel like they're acting like last season too was kind of like they finally made it, and they didn't even make it to the playoffs, but they're acting like like that season like buys them like 5 years of the fans' trust and like willingness to build. But I mean, they literally were a below average team last year. They didn't make it to the playoffs.
Half the teams in the NHL make it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to. I'm looking up. Keep on going. I want to look something up here. I just want to piggyback off that. You're a young team comment.
I don't feel the same way about Granato as I did about Ralph Kruger. I do think that in certain facets that Don Granato is a capable hockey coach. I think he's like his background is development, as we've talked about. He's really good with young players. Guys buy in. Guys really like him. I think that was the exact opposite is Ralph Kruger. Ralph Kruger like bottled up a Team Europe team in the World Cup of Hockey and got them to the final. And he was pretty good with an Oilers team with Taylor Hall back in 2012. Like, he was not qualified to be an NHL head coach. And I think for a certain team, Don Granato was, especially taking over for the shit show that was Ralph Kruger. And I wish the guy no ill will whatsoever. Like, I've stumped for him many, many times on the show and even in the past 3 years. Like, Donnie Meatballs and the vibe that it was for a little bit was really good. But for this team right now, with the expectations that they have, with the drought that's looming over this franchise, he might not be the right guy. And given the fact that Kevin Adams did absolutely nothing this summer, both of those together created the situation, along with, it's on the players too. They're not producing. They're not scoring nearly as much as they did last season. So it's a three-pronged problem. But as we saw with Ken Dorsey, obviously the NHL is much different than the NFL. Sometimes you need to do something to light a spark. We see it all the time in so many different sports leagues that when you fire a coach, it does light a fire under these guys' asses. And especially for guys like Tage and even Jordan Greenway and guys that have played for Donnie before he was with the Sabres. And even Okposo, like, he's been playing well recently. They will take that personally, and they'll feel like it was their fault, because it largely is. But I honestly hope I wake up to a notification tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. West Coast time, that the Sabres fired Granato. I do think it's time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with head coaches in the NHL is, like, I think Granato's like the 8th or 9th longest tenured coach. Like, most coaches don't last that long. Even like a lot of the past Cup champions, like Gerard Gallant was in Vegas, like 4 years ago. Vegas wins a Cup with a different coach. I mean, there's a lot of musical chairs. I mean, Boston gets a new coach the last few years. The Rangers are all top teams in the league. I don't really think firing Granato would be like, oh, this guy was awful. He's like the worst thing ever happened. It would just kind of be like a refresh type of move. Like, I don't really think he's earned that Lindy Ruff, like, let him battle through the tough years and he can maybe work his way out because he led us to the Cup and playoff runs before. He's still a relatively new coach. I think he's going to do great wherever he goes. I kind of wish they still were able to like just keep him on board as an assistant, just because I think he has a great hockey mind, is a great at developing players. I think he'd even make like a great college hockey coach somewhere if he lands on a top program. I think he could turn like a hockey school into a dynasty. Program. Yeah. I mean, he's just great at developing young players, but yeah, like you said, there's a lot of movement in NHL coaches, and sometimes it's just time for a change to get a spark with this group. And I don't think the Sabres could salvage this season necessarily in terms of making it to the playoffs, but I think they can salvage it by just not going on an awful run and like potentially finishing in last place, like kind of like what they did in 2021. I think that season probably set the Sabres back a few additional seasons, and I just don't think they could afford to have another one of those.
Did we tank for Celebrini? Like, is that where we're at right now?
We're close to it. Closer than the playoffs.
Do we celebrate Celebrini?
Celebrate Celebrini.
I mean, it could be what they need. I mean, if they're able to get like an elite number one center, honestly, that's probably the only thing that could save this team.
Sounds great. To be honest.
Really
nice.
Before I'm just going over the numbers I was looking for. So to piggyback off that comment from Tage that we're a young team, and to piggyback my comment earlier, Dylan Cousins' career, 231 games played. Casey Middlestat, 309 games played. Tage Thompson, 324 games played. Alex Tuck, 404 games played. Rasmus Dahlin, 386. Matthias Samuelsson on the lower side because of injury, 137. JJ Paterka, 111, and Owen Power, 119. I just didn't feel like going through the list. I don't want to fucking hear shit, especially from these players that are locked up here till 2030 and beyond about being a young hockey team anymore. Absolutely not. No more of that. I'm tired of hearing it. You guys have been collectively just between the top four that I mentioned in this league for almost 1,200 games. I don't want to hear about youth anymore. You have plenty of experience playing in this league and playing in the NHL. I don't want to hear that garbage anymore. It's time to produce. And if you can't produce, you shouldn't be on this hockey team. Or find at least somebody who's going to get the message across to him anymore. Because we talked about it with Mike Harrington yesterday, and I know like Mike takes a lot of shit, and maybe some of it's deserved, maybe some of it's not. But we talked in depth about the message. Is it being received? And if it's not being received, is it on the coaches and the players, a combination of both? I mean, we saw what, to your point with Walt, what you said, though Don was able to get out of these players and develop these players last season. It seems like that message has really grown stale. And to your point, Connor, I genuinely think it's time for a new messenger. I just don't know. You can't talk to me about youth anymore. Yeah, sure, they're young, but look at all that experience you have just between Cousins, Middlestat, Tuck, and Tage. 1,200 games between the four of them. I don't want to hear about youth anymore. No. You have plenty of experience to get this team over the hump and show up from puck drop. It's not an issue of talent. It's an issue of showing up consistently. You showed up for the first 30 seconds. You got on your heels from a goofy goal off the ref's skate, and then you just didn't produce a shot for the next 12 minutes. And then you just went into a shell for the following 20, where in the second period, what did UPL give up at the first three shots he faced after Levi came out?
Yeah, I was even going to say that. Like, this is the type of situation they put UPL in that I like worry about him going forward, because he was on a roll because he was confident, because he was consistent, he was getting good starts, and he was generally getting good defensive play, as they've largely been better this season than they were last season, if not only a slight bit better. But putting him into a situation like that where he was cold, he's coming off an illness, hasn't played that much recently, that is potentially a detrimental thing for a goalie and their confidence, especially against a team like Columbus. Like imagine against a team like the Bruins or the Rangers coming up in the next 2 weeks. Like they've played better against the best teams in the league for some godforsaken reason. But putting your goalies in that situation is really, really tough. Granato's talking as we speak, and he says on his job status, my concern is on making this group better tomorrow. It was my concern on day one. So he doesn't – obviously he has to say that, but it doesn't seem like he's particularly outwardly concerned at the moment. So I guess we'll see. If we wake up and nothing happens, you play the Leafs at home on Thursday, and you could get run out of the building again. And if you do, where's the tipping point? Like, where is the tipping point here? I honestly, like, they'll probably win 5-2 on Thursday, and they'll fool us again. Like, this has happened the entire year. We're 33 games into the season, and they've done this so many times. How many times have we said this? How many times have we gone on here after losses to horrible teams, and then they come back on Friday night and beat the Golden Knights 5-2 and thoroughly outplay them? Like, this cannot be the standard. This level of inconsistency, it's honestly insane. And for us as fans, they're gaslighting us is what they're doing. Yeah. They're making us feel like we're crazy.
Such a toxic relationship, man.
Yeah, they're making us feel like we're crazy given the level of inconsistency and how well they play on certain nights and then have nights like tonight. So I think that overarching theme is that, like, you got to make it. You have to make a change.
Just going to ask you guys real quick. We set a record today for comments in the chat. Over, under 100.
Over.
Yeah, I go over.
Over, under 120.
I mean, the reason you're asking it, I'm saying over.
Yeah.
Over.
We're at over 160 comments in the chat. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to
straight up
apologize right now.
Please do not run through all of them.
We're just not going to get to you all. We're going to throw up the more relevant ones. I apologize to you guys straight up right now. There's no chance in how it's continuing. I'm watching the number go up as I'm talking. It's gone up 6 since I first asked the question. I'm not going to get all these comments.
This is therapy for all of us.
Yeah, it is. This is the best kind of therapy. This is why I do this. You know, I just wish more so often it was for a win and not just a devastating, embarrassing loss to a team that earlier this season was benching players that they just got done paying 8-year contracts to. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, a team that at the start of the offseason had Mike Babcock as a head coach. They fire him. They bring in the new guy. I forget his name. And, you know, they've been in disarray for most of the season. And then you see Ottawa fire Smith yesterday, a team that we can relate to a lot going into the season because there were very high expectations for both us and Ottawa, and things have just gone horribly wrong. And you wonder, you know, does Buffalo follow suit? I think they should. You know, I genuinely think Don Granato should not be behind the bench against Toronto on Thursday night.
Yeah, Toronto, I just don't think that's a team the Sabres would want to be playing when they're struggling, especially knowing that it's probably going to be a sold-out arena with all Toronto fans. And they play quick and fast. Once they get that momentum going, I mean, they're playing hot right now. That's another game where the Sabres could easily drop 9-10 goals against a hot Leafs team.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing. Like, who do you start? Do you start Comrie? Like,
maybe.
Like, I don't think tonight was on Levi. Obviously, like, I think he wants.
That was a goofy goal off the end boards. Connor, me and you have both.
I think he wants a couple of them back, but at the same time, the defensive coverage was horrible. Matthias Samuelsson looks like a different player. Like, for all the praise he got for their record with him and without him last year and how much better it was with him in the lineup and being a shutdown defender, he has no idea what he's doing in front of the net. He looks like Rasmus Ristolainen at his worst, which is really saying something. And given the Philly connection, I feel like that is pretty apropos in this situation. I cannot believe what I'm watching from his perspective. And I mean, the rest of the defense, obviously, they benched Ryan Johnson tonight, who, of course, hasn't been perfect, but he's been largely one of your best defenders, and he's at least been a positive player from a goals for expected and a goals against expected share. They're making insane lineup decisions. Of course, like, you didn't want to rush Jack Quinn back into it, but you didn't put him on the line with the two guys that he's had the most chemistry with out of his career. If he's 100% and he says he's 100%, why do you not put him with the guys that he connected with the best all of last year and the year before, or even parts of the year before? It doesn't make sense to me. You put him with Tyson Jost and Victor Olofsson, who I guess has played better recently, but at the same time, the ceiling is not nearly as high as it would be with the other line. So, yeah, and we've talked about it all year long. Eric Johnson's still in the lineup almost nightly. Kyle Okposo's on the second power play. It's borderline asinine with some of the decisions that they've made this year. So, what do you do?
If this was a Friday night and we didn't have to work tomorrow, I would say we should take a shot for every time in the chat some form of fire Granato or fire Adams is being said. I can promise you, we would all
go to the hospital,
fucking hammered. We would all be.
We have to get our stomachs pumped.
Literally, it's just.
It's like, I know how many times have we done this? This is probably the 7th time in the past 13 years that we've fire Housley, fire Granato, fire Kruger, fire Dan Bilesma. Dan Bilesma feels like it was 20 years ago at this point. And it feels like easy as fans to just keep doing that and like, the next guy will figure it out. The next guy will figure it out. But if they're not producing and you have these expectations, what else are we supposed to do?
I don't blame, I used to be, pretty hard on people who sold their tickets to Toronto fans. Sell them to the Toronto fans, man. Sell them. Get every penny you can. If they're willing to pay you $300 for a 100-level ticket, absolutely do it.
They've broken the number 1 Leaf hater. That's how bad this is.
I honestly, Phil, if Granato's still there on Thursday, fill that fucking arena with blue and white jerseys. I swear, I want it to be literally a National Hockey League embarrassment for the Buffalo Sabres because I'm just sick of it.
Like I said, they'll probably play well. They'll probably play well, win 5-1.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost a game you want Eichel for. So I remember Eichel in those games where the Leafs fans would take over, would just absolutely go off and play like the best hockey of his career. So maybe like someone on the Sabres could activate that Eichel level, but yeah, it could definitely get real ugly.
The craziest thing is that the player I would think would be most likely to do that in that game would be Zach Benson.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's your 18-year-old draft pick from 3 months ago.
You have a huge problem when that guy on a lot of nights is your best player. Like, you have a lot of issues.
It's so bizarre.
He plays like the most mature game too. I mean, he shows up consistently, plays like probably with the most effort in the defensive end of the ice, and this guy was taking high school classes like 6 months ago.
Literally.
Yeah,
that's not an exaggeration. He was just like Matt Ellis was coaching 13U the day he got a phone call asking if he wanted to be an assistant coach of an NHL hockey team. Like, sure, why not? I'm in.
If Matt Ellis has any hair left by the time Thursday rolls around, like I'd be shocked. That hairline is receding rapidly. We don't need to get into personal insults here. That's my bad.
This guy Pablo Barossa, I don't know if that's your real name or not. Seems suspicious, but I already own my share of 2 season tickets. Like I said, brown paper bag Thursday in section 111. I'm going to be looking for you, bud. Pablo, I'm going to be looking for you. We should go to the KeyBank Center and get a picket line going, show how mad we are as fans. That actually happened. Remember that after the phone call? There was a rally.
I forgot about that.
Like throughout the day, I was told there was anywhere between 800 to 1,000 fans that showed up over the extensive amount of time they were down there.
After what call? Was
the phone call? The WGR.
After your call?
Yeah, there was a rally set up.
You started a movement.
Set up in the plaza, huh?
You started a movement.
Yeah, the only thing was it was in the middle of winter, and nobody wanted to stand out in the cold.
Do we start a union as Sabres fans to
we
have
should start a union? That's a good idea.
To have our rights protected somehow.
Yeah, we should overthrow,
or just go full Green Bay Packers situation. Try to make it so that we have like a public share of the team and it being a publicly traded company.
You could literally run Twitter polls with like writing this team on who we should sign, who we shouldn't sign, who we should trade, and probably be a better run than what the Sabres have given us the past few years.
Without question.
Yeah, a good point here from Gargalon. I'm convinced they do not listen to Sam Ventura. His numbers scream play Ryan Johnson with dolls, but they actually bench him.
And Chad Demonics put out a great chart today. Just Ryan Johnson with anyone has been a positive player, and it's not even that small of a sample size. I think it's been, like over 300 minutes that he's been on the ice, that he's been a positive defender for this team, which is saying something for this franchise, that they actually have a positive defender at both ends of the ice.
Yeah. Keep it coming with the comments. We got some new faces in here. Dylan Baker, you're always in there, Gar, Kevin. But again, this is why I do this. I mean, even if one of my things too is you don't really have any excuses. I mean, you got Quinn back tonight. Whether he's 100% or not, you got that guy back. And whether he's 100% or not, he still has an elite shot in the league. Like, you know, you're missing Greenway, yeah. You're missing Skinner, yeah. And they're important parts of your team. But in terms of, like, being 100% the team that you're supposed to have on the ice, this is about as close as we've been since opening night. And to go out there on a few nights rest and let up 9 goals, just – again, look like you don't even want to be there. Like almost like the Cowboys against the Bills. Like, and not taking anything away from the Buffalo Bills, but the Cowboys didn't even look like they wanted to be out there. Like, and the same thing with the Sabres tonight. They look like want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, like, they blame the weather. Like, it's the easy. They blame the refs and the weather, and that's the easy excuse in the book. Just like the Sabres are saying, they're blaming their youth, and they're blaming their inconsistency and lack of focus. And they're saying, like, oh, like, Don's not out there playing. We're the ones that playing. Then blame yourselves. Then what else is there to do at this point? Who the fuck?
Here you go. Who the fuck is that? Marty Wolford, anyway.
I forgot to do my homework. I forgot to figure out what his coaching path to the NHL was. That's my bad. I'm going to try to figure that out.
I don't know. I quit buying tickets if I lived in Buffalo, but I'm not in Casey. Change up the lineup: Siddock, Poso, Krebs, Olofsson, bring up Kulik, and someone plays. Like, honestly, like, if you want to put fans in the seats at this point, like, you might as well start up bringing up guys like Kulik. Like, you know,
well, he's in Sweden now for the World Junior.
Oh, yes, right, the world champion. Oh, yeah, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
Point, like,
and in January, when they're probably really out of it, then yeah, maybe they can start doing that. But
yeah, I don't know.
They're gonna have a hard time. I feel like selling any tickets the rest of this year. I feel like most people probably just like almost protest like going to games. Like, attendance is gonna be brutal.
Yeah, and Mike said it last night. That presents like a really, really tough financial situation for them. That they were probably banking on the building being full for most of 2024, leading up to a potential playoff push, and now they're gonna get half or maybe even less than that of the revenue that they were projecting for a franchise that's already not making money and doesn't have the money to improve the arena after 13 years of mediocrity or even worse. Like, that is a really, really detrimental thing to happen to this franchise. And you were banking on the exact same team as last year doing that with a 21-year-old goalie. It's not his fault, but they didn't do enough, and we're seeing it on an every other night basis.
Yeah.
13 and 20.
They're 13 and 20 right now.
13, 17, and 3.
Oh my God, man. Oh my God.
You win 7 games, and then you go on a 7-game win streak, then you're back to 500.
Yeah. Here's a question, Dutch Jr. Are we just not actually good? Was last year just an outlier? I mean, I think you have a lot of talent on this team.
They're not playing good. Anymore. Yeah, they're not playing good. They're not playing to their potential. Thompson showed he could be an NHL superstar. He had an unfortunate injury, but even before that, he wasn't producing at the rate he was. Dylan Cousins has taken a massive step back. Jeff Skinner, obviously, he's been hurt too. Alex Tuck has been hurt. Jordan Greenway's been hurt. And those are all like seemingly freak injuries too. Like, how many times has Nathan McKinnon thrown a hit like that in his career against Jeff Skinner the other night? Like, that is a freak injury, and Jeff Skinner's largely not been hurt his entire career. Like, it's a lot of bad luck, but it's also a lot of regression and a lot of, I mean, just snake bitten, to be honest. It's really unfortunate.
In
Yeah, I think the
2011, Terry Pegula said the goal of this franchise is to win a Stanley Cup, and he called us hockey heaven.
That's
2023, brutal. Getting ready to head into 2024, 0 playoff games. The arena is probably the worst in the league, and that's saying a lot considering there's an NHL team playing in a 5,000 seat college arena right now.
I've heard that place is great, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard that too. The fan experience is shot. I actually sat in a seat. Which game was it? The last Goathead game, where Levi played. I had a 2x4 for an armrest. Not kidding. It was painted blue. It was a 2x4. 100% a 2x4 So there was that.
You don't think that was like some like symbolism of grit, maybe, that they were trying to send a message to the
sandpaper?
Yeah.
Oh,
just
we
like
need another round.
Scratch your arms up as you're celebrating.
Oh,
I mean, those seats are like, that's one thing I want to bring up. The seats at the arena are absolutely like disgusting, and it's unbelievable. Those are the seats of like an NHL venue.
Dude, I've told this story on this show, and I'll keep telling it. I go to check every start of every season to see if that seat is still there, if it's been cleaned off. 10 years, I mean, it might have been almost 10 years ago. I was at a game with my cousin. We're sharing nachos, double cheese, and it was that those plastic things are flimsy. Snaps, the cheese goes all over the guy in front of us, but luckily he was wearing like a leather jacket, so it wiped off pretty easily and didn't stain anything. But a lot of it got on the side of the seat. That cheese is still fucking caked onto that seat this day. That is a fact, bro. That is a fact. Worst arena in the league. Worst arena. Like, if you're not going to care about the fan experience, if you're not going to care about how you take care of your fans, you just can't improve concessions by a little bit, but then also jack up prices on said concessions and think the problem is fixed. No. Like,
it's crazy because, like, what amount of money would Terry have to put into the arena for it to be like even an average NHL arena? I'm thinking like, I don't know, 20 million? Less?
At least. I mean, I don't even know how much replacing all the seats would cost, but I think those are like the same seats they had since the arena was open. Like,
no, they are. They 100% are.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 50 million. That's like a drop in the bucket for Terry Pegula. That's like nothing he would even sneeze at. And I guess apparently he just refuses to do it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just even like the concourses, like you still see like
the cracks in the.
Yeah, there's cracks everywhere. Even the signage, they still have like the Turd Burger like jersey font and like navy, silver, gold like signage. Like they haven't worn those jerseys in like 8 years, and honestly, they haven't changed the signage.
They should bring them back. They should bring them back and go out there with them one night and see what happens. I bet they win that game. I do.
Yeah.
Definition of a toxic relationship. Yeah. Again, it is. And we just keep coming back for more. We keep coming back. We keep coming back. We keep engaging. We keep engaging. And it just sucks, man, because it's like I've been posting again. You know, I still will too. Begrudgingly, I will. But you post these videos from games back in like the 99 finals, you know, back when Timmy Conley was on the team, and just the electricity in that fucking building. And it's so true. Winning can fix everything. Winning can fix everything. And you know, when I made that phone call, like it was the lowest of the low I felt for the franchise. Like it was just so bad. It was so bad. You looked around you at the arena and you really took it all in. Like, you can only handle so much of Sabretooth hitting a fucking drum, let's go Buffalo, and think that's a good fan experience. You look at the conditions you're sitting in, how cramped you are next to the person next to you, just like in-game announcers, dilemmas and drama away from the ice, whether it was with Russ Brandon or, you know, whatever you want to list, just never being in the news for good things. And you go back and you watch those fucking videos, man. It's just like, how have we fallen this far? How has it gotten this bad? How is this team not like realistically the best owner this team ever had? If you don't want was probably Golisano. And not best owner we had, but last good owner we had. Because I'm not even going to talk about the Pagulas, but I feel like they almost lucked into a good team because they drafted a bunch of high speed players, and then the rule changes happened during the lockout, and the game was built for those players. And then you go out and you get a guy like Drury and Briere, who honestly were trending downward rather than up with where they were in their careers. And again, this is before the rule changes when you went out and got these players, and then the rule changes happened. And everything just sort of clicked together, and everything was so much fun. 10,000 fans at party in the plaza. Dude, I was burning during the 05-06 series against the Senators. I was literally at party in the plaza. These big up posters of Danny Healy, Alfredson, and Spezza. We were burning them in the plaza. We were setting them on fire, and everybody was losing their minds around us. Straight up like a fire hazard in the middle of 10,000 people, and everybody could have cared less. It was so electric, so much fun, and literally, this is the definition of the Cleveland Indians in Major League. That's what we are. That's what we are. We are the Cleveland Indians from the first Major League movie.
We're the New York Jets.
Yeah.
We're the New York Jets, which is the only professional sports franchise that has a longer playoff drought than the Sabres right now. And it's likely going to match that at 13. They just got eliminated, and once we get eliminated, probably in February at this point, it'll match that. But the same level of frustration that we have for all of these seasons is that same passion that we had when they were good, when those cup runs happened, when they were at their best. It's passion nonetheless, aside from it being frustration, because everybody actually does care because it's a legitimate hockey city. Most of the fans played hockey, or at least knew somebody that played hockey, grew up going to games, know the game really well. It's obviously a very heavily influenced Canadian city. So it's not a facade by any means. Everybody knows hockey, and that's why we are so frustrated. Because as Walt said, I feel like collectively all of us could make better decisions than what has been made in the past 11 years, let alone the past 2.5, or even just this past summer. So yeah, it's really bad. It's another instance of rock bottom. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to be home in a few days, and I can't wait to go to those Bruins and Blue Jackets games. Wait, is the Blue Jackets next Saturday too? Oh yeah, let's go, baby. Woo! I'm excited. Can't wait.
Revenge game.
I know it's different for me because I'm not home, and I only get so many opportunities to go to games, and it's fun to go with friends and whatnot. I know it's different actually living in Buffalo. If I lived in Buffalo at this point, it would be tough to go to games, and I would have lost my voice booing tonight. I would have been booing continuously throughout the entire game because that's what they deserve. That's the product they're giving us right now.
This is a good comment from Richard Isaacs. Which drought is worse, Bills or Sabres? I see Sabres. I'm going to agree. I'm going to say the Sabres because at least with the Bills, granted, it was a much longer drought. And obviously, as we're seeing right now, even though I think when the Sabres are good and contending, that question is up for debate, that this is a Bills town, at least right now, that they were at least there were seasons where they always saw them in the hunt. They're in the hunt. There are a couple of times where it came down to the last two games, but they cut things interesting. Things have never been interesting up until last season. When have things been interesting since he bought this team? When? It's just been nothing but basement dweller after basement dweller, lottery pick. It's a very good argument that the Sabres drought right now is worse than the Bills ever was, because at least the Bills gave you seasons where they were truly in the hunt and contended for a playoff spot. Whereas up until this past season, the Sabres haven't even fucking close.
Yeah. I mean, their curse was being too good to get into a position to draft a game-changing player or a quarterback, but too bad to actually compete for the playoffs. They were in that purgatory situation that I think the Patriots are probably going to be for the next 10 years, which is sweet justice. But the Sabres, as you said, have largely been the worst team in the league for, I would say, at least 6 years of the 12-year drought, which is obviously unacceptable. But yeah, I would say the pain of just horrible product has been worse with most of the Sabres drought. At least the Bills, like you said, competed. I was at the game against the Steelers in 2004 when they needed to get to 10-6 to make it to the playoffs. And fucking
What was it? Who was
Willie Parker. Willie Parker had 190 yards rushing, third string running back.
Second and third stringers all
win a Week 17 game at home. And I was banging my head on the bleachers in front of me as a 12-year-old kid. God, that was horrible. But
I remember that very vividly.
At least that felt like a playoff game. We haven't even come close to that so far this year. So not this year, the past 12 years.
I think. No, go ahead, Walt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like this Sabres draft for like the younger generation was kind of like my Bills draft, like growing up. Like I had no idea what a Bills playoff game was until they made it that Tyrod year. And there's so many there's Sabres fans that are like probably in college right now that don't even know what a Sabres playoff game is like. And it's awful that like two different generations had to experience like droughts this bad for their two local sports teams.
And like, here's the thing, like back when we were growing up and going through those early 2000 years and mid 2000 years, even late 2000s, late 90s, like we knew winning hockey. We knew exciting hockey. You had Hasek, you had Miller, you had LaFontaine, you had McGillney, you had Briere, Drury, Vanek, Roy, Fenegenov, all of these players, Conley, all of these players that just gave you reasons to be excited every time you sat down for a Sabres game. And now you see a lot of hockey fans in Buffalo. They're wearing opposing teams' jerseys. They're out there wearing Ovechkin jerseys. They're out there wearing Crosby jerseys. They're out there wearing, whoever it is, jerseys. It's because the Sabres have given them zero reason to give a shit about buying their merchandise. Because, and make no mistake about it, this is a hockey city. The playoff TV ratings show it every single year. We have been in the playoffs in almost, was it 13? Is it 13? Will this be 13?
I believe so.
14.
Yeah.
Like, it shows it. And yet we haven't been to the playoffs in over a decade. And that's what is one of the things that's so irritating about it, because we know how special this city can be when this team is good. Like, I just remember those teams just like going out every day, playing street hockey with your friends. I was out there in my Hasek jersey with a starter jacket underneath the chest protector, baseball glove, Franklin waffle, Milek pads, playing till sundown until my parents were yelling at me to come in. And then after that, just you couldn't turn a corner without seeing a slug. Like you couldn't. Or a goat head. You just couldn't, man. They were everywhere. I remember the Andersons in Cheektowaga around the corner of my house. They literally had every single pane glass window painted for a hoo-ha Sabres on a warpath. Like, it was so cool, just the atmosphere and the vibes. And nobody gets to experience that. One of my best friends, his younger brother, who plays my men's league team, I coached him at Depew. Like, his favorite player is McDavid, and he's an Oilers fan. How often, when we were growing up, do you remember your friends being fans of like the Oilers or the Dallas Stars or the Arizona Coyotes? Nobody gave a shit about other teams because the Sabres were excited. Even if they were losing, they were still exciting.
I was an Avalanche fan for a little bit, mostly just because of Patrick Waugh and those teams, Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic. But
those are the outliers. Those were excited. That rivalry was exciting between them and Detroit.
Two of the best years of my hockey fanship in my life, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just it sucks to your point, Walt. It sucks that these fans will never know, or don't know. You should say never. At this point, might be never, but just don't know what it's like.
Oh, I got to tap out soon.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're about to hit an hour. Any final thought from you guys? Like I said, guys, there's about over 250 comments right now on the peanut gallery. I told you guys I'm not going to get to them all, but I'm trying my best for the last couple minutes here. We'll start with final thoughts. We'll start with you, Walt.
I'm just going to say, like, I just don't know where this team is going, like what the future will look like. And I honestly forgot what playoff hockey in Buffalo feels like. And it's kind of sad that we've gotten to this point. And it looked like there was light at the end of the tunnel heading into the season. But now it's kind of just feels like those Eichel Reinhart years where it seems like you have some talent, but you're just kind of stuck in the mud for the entire season and for seasons to come. And I just hope someday Sabres finally make break through and make it to the playoffs. But at this point, it's just like I don't even know where they even go from here.
We've got the Leafs, the Rangers, and the Bruins. The next 3 games.
Yeah.
Sounds like 3-0 to me. The way this team has played this year. So I'm going to hold on to that while simultaneously holding on to the hope that I wake up tomorrow morning and we see that Don Granato's been fired. I think it's necessary at this point. You have a day tomorrow to bring Seth Happert from Rochester as a stopgap, and then maybe you can hire Bruce Boudreau or Gerard Gallant or someone or Craig Brewer or someone else to come in and give this team the kick in the ass they need. They're obviously mentally unstable as all of us are watching this team, because they can beat the best teams in the league and then lose to the worst and get blown out of their own building on a Tuesday night, 9-4. So it's maddening. It's horrible. We're all frustrated. This is the weirdest Sabres season I've ever been a part of, and that's really saying something, given that we had games that we were actively rooting for the other team to win back in 2015. So the fact that we've reached rock bottom again, probably for the 7th time in the past 12 years, it really says something, and something's got to change. So we'll see what happens, obviously, but yeah, this is a tough pill to swallow.
Here's a comment. I'm 15 years old and I've never got to see this team ever win or go on a deep playoff run. I want to see this team just simply be in the playoffs so bad. I mean, just piggybacking off what we just said.
Hurts my heart.
Yeah. Bill's drought was easier. Bill's drought was easier to take because of 16 games and the unavailability of Brady. 13 years of 82 games is Chinese water torture on 1,000 paper cuts.
Well said, Gar. Hey, is that really Gerard Gallant in the comments?
I
Could
wish.
be.
What is that his burner? What do we think?
I think so.
Hey, Gerard, come. We got a parking spot for you behind the arena.
Dude, I'll drive him to every game. I will literally drive Gerard Gallant to every single hockey game. We've been going for an hour, man, and there's still over 60 people watching us right now. It's wild.
Well, if you want to keep going, more
No,
power.
I'm done. I'm done. We get taken for granted. They don't have to change or try, because most of the time there are still fans. Even empty at their worst, even at their worst. Okay. They still have more bodies than Arizona, Florida, Carolina when they were bad. It's true. It's true. And it sucks. Someone made a comment earlier, like, is it possible that you just get fans together to just not be in the stands at puck drop? You go to the game, but at puck drop, just nobody's there. Like, just to give it the visual at puck drop, where there is like 200 fans in the
Carolina Panthers fans did that this past week, and as depressing as it is, like, that was something that made waves. That went viral. So
yeah,
as horrible as it is, like, yeah, like, we as fans can only do so much, right? I mean, I'm going to be home next week, and I'm only home twice a year, so I'm going to go to both games. But I very much understand it from a perspective of somebody who lives in Buffalo. It's not worth the money right now.
Yeah. But with that being said, this has been I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Buffalo's premier market and tap room. Over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western New York locations. Open 7 days a week from 11:30 a.m. till 10:30 and later, with live entertainment and trivia at all 7 locations. Both kid and dog friendly. Get over to Fatty Beer, at Fatty Beer on Instagram and Twitter, fattybeercompany.com. And of course, Buffalo Logo Apparel, one of the best spots to get all of your Buffalo sports apparel needs, whether it's the Sabres, LOL, the Bills, the Bisons, the Bandits, or even local businesses. They support a lot of local business. Make sure you check them out at Buffalo Logo Co. on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you all for your support. With that being said, Walt, thanks for hopping on with us. You can find Walt at Sabermetrics on Twitter, with the Charging Buffalo. You can find Connor Hurley at C Hurls. Is it C Hurls 13?
Yeah, that's it.
On Twitter. And of course, you know where you can find me at Duane S39 on Twitter, Instagram, or at 2 Goalies 1 Mike. Just remember, this has been I'll Hang Up and Listen. We will talk to you on Thursday night And remember, as always,
Go Bills.
go Sabres.
Go Bills.
Different than they did before, like the sorted girl and the holy crow, singing as we go, so below. Burn down the old days, the memories, all that fire in my road. These stories quake round and grow so much longer than you know. Longer than you know. I could never tell